Have you heard about Anchor? Well, it's one of the easiest ways to create a podcast. Not only is it 100% free, but it has a variety of creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or a computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast to other sites such as Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many others for you. And Anchor even allows you to make money from your podcast without a required minimum listenership. So whether you've been in the podcasting game for a long time or you're completely new to it, Anchor is so user-friendly that it's basically your one-stop shop for making a podcast. So what are you waiting for? Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. You're listening to First Fossil. Because sometimes you simply need someone to help you take that first fossil. Hello and welcome to First Fossil, a show where we learn together how to take that first fossil toward becoming the best versions of ourselves. My name is Candace Olushola, and today's special guest is a Grammy Award-winning artist. He's in the group Pentatonics. He is also my first best friend ever on this planet, and he just so happens to be my older brother. So please, without further ado, welcome my brother, Kevin Olushola. Hey, Kev, how are you doing today?
Very well. That's a very, very nice introduction of me, first of all.
I mean,
and
it's true.
that's
so
very kind.
You better receive it. Hey.
And I love that you and I are best friends. I think hopefully that people get that feel as we converse, because I really, you're, come on.
I mean,
since
it's kind of true.
literally the womb. You know what I mean?
No, literally, though. The womb, y'all. Kevin's not just my best friend, and he's not just my older brother. He's like my other dad. So
That's so funny.
He don't play. He's been taking care of me since I was a seedling.
Yeah, that's true. Also, that's also probably why it's been so hard for you to date, because I was probably the first person that would always say, who is this guy? No. Let me talk to this person first.
See, boom. That's it. That's it. If Kevin doesn't approve, sorry, bro, you got to go.
Legit.
Oh. Hey, we can't have that. Hey, I wash my hands of these. Hey, in Jesus' name. Hey, I wash my hands.
Hey.
You have to go somewhere else. The brother does not approve of you. You got to go. Exactly. Not in this house. The Holy Spirit will help you pack your bags. Hey. Hey, we don't have time for that. Hey.
No, not today.
Next, the day Kevin goes, that's it. I'm like, hey, let's get to the courthouse today before this brother changes his mind.
100%.
Hey, I'm getting old over here. Hey, the eggs are getting dusty. We've been waiting. Thank you, Lord.
Oh, my God.
You spoke to my brother.
So
It is time.
funny.
I've been released. Jesus. Hey.
Oh, my gosh. It's so funny. You right?
I'm just saying. So, pray for me, y'all. Or pray for Kevin. Maybe pray for him.
That.
The Lord will release me.
That's
into
so funny.
the
You
hands
right?
of my husband,
Hey.
Lord Jesus. Hey, my Lord, won't He do it? Ugh. Won't He do it? I have faith. Amen. So, I love that. See, that's best friends. That was the perfect introduction to my best friend. So, Kevin, tell people about yourself in case for some reason they have no clue who you are.
I mean, there's probably a lot of people that haven't heard who I am, which is fine. But, my name is Kevin Olushola. I am part of an a cappella group called Pentatonics. We've been together since 2011. And, we've done a lot of amazing things that even to, I think the music industry standards have been pretty incredible. 3 Grammys, millions of albums sold, platinum Christmas albums, double platinum Christmas albums. And so I feel very, very blessed to be in this band, in this position. But, it's funny because my journey going into music didn't start that way, because I never thought I was going to be a musician. So it's interesting that coming from a more pre-med background, wanting to go into medicine, that all of this transpired in my life. So it's been great. It's been wonderful. I'm thankful for all the lessons I've learned from it.
Yeah. Actually, I love that you were talking about that because I was telling someone a few months ago, I think it was like classmates. But we were talking about our background and how, where we were raised, how we were raised, and if this was the trajectory that we thought we were going to be on. And I said, funny enough, I went to a boarding arts academy and I majored in French horn and I studied at Boston Conservatory for orchestra and private lessons. Kevin was at Andover, in Andover, Massachusetts, a few hours from me, and he was strictly academic. I mean, you did some a cappella in high school, you did, orchestra and whatever,
Yeah,
but it
like
was
a
really
little
like
bit. Yeah, for
side
sure.
stuff. I was majoring in it, and then we like completely flopped.
You're right.
Like totally,
Oh, I
the
never
Lord
even
was
thought
like,
about it that
ha,
way. You're
funny
so
children,
right.
let me help you. And then we just switched. And so I ended up on a track to pharmacy school, and he ended up in pentatonics. Like, totally flopped our backgrounds in 180 direction of each other. And
Right. Wow.
it's really funny how that turned out.
Yeah,
But at the
that's
same
so
time, we
weird.
relate to each other really well because of that. Like, I understand working in like an intent, like you're surrounded by creatives, and they're some of the most brilliant people you've ever met in your life. And
Right.
then you work with creatives for a living versus you understand the challenges of using your scientific and mathematical mind to create new, and you still have to be a creative in science, right? It's not really different, it's just a different avenue of creation, of being creative. But you understand the grind that you go on when you're trying to just do research and study the biochemistry and organic chemistry and working in the lab all the time, going to these intense classes, and that helps you in your career, and it helps you understand me and our little brother Kellon. And so it's just
100%.
it's so cool, all of the like overlaps and twists and turns that we've gone on despite growing up in the same household. And I don't know, Jesus got jokes.
Right.
That's
You're
what
right.
that was straight up a total surprise to all of us.
For
But
sure.
super cool how it's all played out so far, because there's
Yeah,
so
completely,
much more
completely.
to unfold. So it's really cool. So why don't you explain a time when you took a first basso? So whether that was something towards something, out of something, away from something, into something, what was that first basso, and when did it take place? Can you kind of unpack your story?
Sure. You know what? You know this story extremely well, because we grew up together. Um, so I think up until 15 years old, I was somebody who was pretty. I would say that I used my gifting to get me through a lot of my challenges in high school. I think because of my natural talent, I did pretty well in music competitions, like, being first chair my sophomore year of the Kentucky All-States, or, going to Europe for as a 12-year-old for the United States Wind Band, or in my academic classes, because I think where we were living, academics weren't, for me at least, as tough. Everything felt pretty easy. And so I remember mom and dad saying that they felt like I needed more of a challenge. And so I remember stepping on foot of this elite boarding school called Phillips Academy. And I never thought about going to boarding school. And when I went there, I was just flabbergasted by all the different types of people and the brilliance and the tenacity and resilience that these kids had. And I felt like I really could relate to them, because these were extremely high-performing, high-achieving kids that wanted to do amazing things. They were very idealistic. in their pursuits. And I wanted to be around people who had that same fervor for learning and the passion for doing great things. And so I decided to apply my sophomore year of high school to boarding school for entry into my junior year. And lo and behold, I got in. Did not expect that. And so when I got in, it was an extremely difficult first step for me because this is the first time I was truly challenged on all fronts. Musically, I truly met people that were extremely gifted at music. I mean, but not only gifted, but skilled because they had gone to New England prep programs or Juilliard prep programs, right? They'd practiced all the time. So they came in with such a level of skill. Academically, these are kids who had gone to some of the probably top middle schools, high schools in their area and were prepared for a place like Andover. And then Andover just takes their preparation and raises it up a notch, and truly it's I'd probably say it's the Ivy League of boarding schools. They say that Andover's the most elite, prestigious boarding school in the country, if not one of the most prestigious in the world. So I was so out of my league when I got there. I remember, my English teacher, Miss Touzignon, I love this woman, but my first paper, she marked red all over it. And I thought I did a great job. I was pretty confident coming in, and she's like, it's as if nobody taught you basic grammar structure and that somebody taught you that utilizing big words is the equivalent of writing a beautiful sentence, which it's not. So things like that kept happening, in my social studies, my U.S. history class, writing so many essays, like 10, 15-page papers, often having to analyze history. Everything was done with such precision and a level of thoughtfulness that I wasn't prepared for. In my first semester, I got so many bad grades I'd never seen in my entire life. And so I thought I wasn't exactly meant for the school. And it really discouraged me, musically especially. I mean, I knew I was talented, but just there were so many kids who were just so unbelievably good and skilled at their instrument. So, my parents, my dad, he was somebody who wanted to take me out, thought about it, but my mom said, no, we took him there for a reason. This is the education that he needs. He needs to learn to rise to the occasion. And so, I learned a lot of lessons at that time. The first and foremost one that has been so unbelievably important to, I think, my whole success up till now is time management. I went to the academic support center, and I sat down with their analysts, and I did a test with them, and they said, listen, it's not that you're not intelligent. You're actually highly intelligent. The issue is that you have absolutely no idea how to manage your time, and therefore you cannot do the 25 plus hours of work that you have to finish every single week. You're not managing it well. I am so glad I learned that lesson because within that year, I learned so many great skills. I mean, for example, during all of my breaks, I would go and get the syllabi for each class, and I would take those breaks to study at least a quarter to half of the material going in. So now I came in at least being ahead. And I learned this not just from Academic Support Center, but from one of my friends who was just getting A's in every single class. Went to Cornell, such a brilliant guy. And now I came in, people would say, oh my gosh, how come he knows everything? How come he's so smart, he's so brilliant? No, it's just that I studied everything beforehand so that everything in class was now just a refresher. And I started seeing myself doing better until, senior fall, when it really mattered for, I think, applying to college. I was on the high academic honor roll at Andover, and I never thought I could be able to get on that. So, but it's about time management and knowing your weaknesses and then working within those weaknesses to produce a new strength that you didn't have. And time management became my new strength. And, even now in my industry, it's not that so many people can't get things done. It's just that they don't have a plan to get everything done. Especially as an entrepreneur, you have to have a plan. So that time management that I feel like I have now that was birthed at Andover has given me such a leg up in terms of being able to do all the things that I do, not only with my band, but for my solo career. in all the various projects that I have.
Wow. So so then for you, your first basso was the failing of your English paper?
No, I think my first paso was going to Andover, deciding to apply and going to Andover. That was a massive step coming from Kentucky and, not in my environment, not feeling like I was as challenged as I needed to be, to now going to probably the most intense, challenging environment I have ever been in. And I truly say it is the most. I went to Yale. I'm so glad I went there, but that was nowhere near as intense as Andover. Nothing in my life has compared to that experience.
Even still.
Even now, I would say even now. I mean, I'm not saying that the grind and the challenge of making music and figuring yourself out isn't difficult. It is very difficult, and I'm still going through that process. But in terms of the intensity, I have never been in such an intense environment as Andover, and it challenged me in a way that I'm so thankful.
Wow. So, what was it like from that first, like basically failing that first English paper to even like sophomore year or junior year? Like, how were you feeling with each year that came compared to the year before? Like, did you feel at points where you're like, I'm still not getting this, I'm really frustrated? Or were there times where you felt like, I'm kind of on dad's side, can I get out of this situation? Like, what was it that got you to that first? Well, you didn't go. You weren't there freshman year. You were there from junior year and senior year.
Yeah, junior year
so,
and senior year.
So that's okay. So that's like that 2 year period. Were there points in that 2 year period where you're like, I really just don't think this is gonna work out? And how did you navigate those moments?
You know what? I would say this. No. There were always times that I made mistakes and I didn't do as well as I might have wanted to, but I saw myself as a human progressing consistently. And that progression made me want to continue going and going, understanding my limits, understanding how far I could go. I just didn't know that I could push myself that far. So no, I didn't. And I appreciate that, because now I think that pushing of my limit made me realize that I'm capable of anything that I feel like I've been called to do. So that's why I think I would also say in my music, I learned. I'll give you another first paso if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
I think the second one was me starting to figure out how to cello box. And cello boxing, if people don't know what that is playing cello and beatboxing at the same time. Because of my experience at Andover, having my limits pushed, I realized that when I started playing cello and beatboxing at the same time, and I got the idea when I was actually living in China, one of my teachers had asked me, had I ever thought about putting the two together? And I said, absolutely not, because you don't mess up such strict pedagogy that's been taught for hundreds of years and add this new thing to it, because it's almost disrespectful to the classical music. But I finally said, forget that. Let me just try it. Let me push the limits and boundaries, because I know what that feels like. And I know what the uncertainty of creating something new feels like. I know the uncertainty of not sure if this will work feels like, because of my past experiences at Andover. But continuously pushing the limit and saying, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to be resilient. I'm going to be tenacious in this pursuit. Also, it was fun. But I think having that gave me the confidence that I could create something with this. So I remember the first paso there was very basic scales and doing very basic beats with those scales. I mean, I would do a D minor scale and have a kick that was just quarter note kick. And then I might do a more Latin groove, like a as I'm doing these scales. Just practicing those very, very specific things. Then I would try taking beats that I liked online and try to replicate those, and that was tough for me in the beginning, because I think one of the things you don't learn in classical music necessarily is groove. You might have a tempo, but like the actual feeling of a groove, you might not necessarily learn that. So just getting used to that. Then I tried to challenge myself. The next step was working with rappers on campus and in the local area. I'd play cello and beatbox for these rappers. And that helped me get even more accustomed to what a groove feels like. And I wasn't the best beatboxer at the time. I didn't know all the sounds. My sounds that I did have were very not clean, but I was just getting better at understanding this skill. And so I continuously progressed over, I'd say, a time period of junior fall up until, when I lived in China for a year. So I'd say that was a good 2 years of time, me just working on just these basic ideas until I finally got to a piece called Julio. And Julio was a song by the Turtle Island String Quartet's cellist, Mark Summer, that he wrote. And it was such a groovy piece. I'd heard it when I was in college. In my first year of high school. And I loved it, and I never thought that I had the swagger to play it. But I feel like with all the experience I had, I said, okay, I'm going to take another first step into trying to do a full musical piece with cello and having to make the beatboxing interesting as well. And, the thing is, that's the piece that went viral online that allowed, one of my bandmates, Scott, at the right time, and they were looking through 4 or 5 different beatboxers to create a group for the TV show The Sing Off, an a cappella TV show, which Pentatonics was birthed out of. But he was looking for a beatboxer for that, and that piece went viral, and he said it's the musicality that he saw that he realized he wanted me to be part of the group. What people don't realize about that is that I worked on that piece for a full year. I mean, one long year trying it out, performing it at different places, realizing this works, realizing that this didn't work, seeing people's reactions. Some people say, this is crazy. Why are you doing this to classical music? Some people said, this is the coolest thing I have ever seen. I can't believe this. To where I remember when I performed it on the Yale Admit Day, when they were bringing back, Bulldog Day, where they were bringing back new admits to Yale's campus. The president had asked me to perform that for the new admits. And so they were all like, I've never seen anything like this. But they were trying to show the prowess of Yale students. So I knew that there was something there. So when I finally put it up online and it went viral, I was surprised, but I was prepared for when that thing came. And when the band came and asked me to be a part of what they were doing, to take that next step into a music career. So, I think that first step of just trying cello boxing, as hard as it was and as crazy as it was to so many people, it led me to where I literally am today, where I have this career.
This is why Kevin and I are different, because Kevin has always been the type of person who's very diligent in what he's trying to do. He has really good focus, and when he wants something, he really hustles toward it. And I was less of that. Not as much of that. I liked having fun, and Kevin was, like I said, the dad of my life. So he constantly was like, Candace, you need to do this and do that. And I'm like, la-di-da-di-da, okay. And, when Kevin went to Andover, the only reason why I ended up in boarding school is because Kevin made sure that applications were sent to the house on my behalf. After he had talked to friends of different boarding schools, and he knew my personality, so we had a mix in there, and most of them were like the performing arts schools, because he's like, you're a creative, you like to have fun, you like to be expressive, so I think this would suit you way better than where I am. Like, no, we can't put you in my arena, you're gonna hate it, let's put you in this arena. And I loved 100%. Loved it. Kevin knew exactly where I needed to be, because he's my...
You really did enjoy Walnut Hill School. You really loved that.
No, Walnut Hill was perfect for where I was in that stage of life, as far as my maturity and growing and connecting with people from all over the world, and learning from people that definitely played and were way more into their craft than I was. But it really opened my eyes to a world of being on your grind. It was different because it was from the, practice my instrument 8 hours a day, or stay in the art studio and just keep painting or keep sculpting, or going to your dorm room and doing your creative writing pieces, or helping out with the operas. I got to be the stage manager for some of the operas and watching how they put the pieces together of the opera and how they made sure that they were getting the verbiage appropriate and the articulation. And so I was fascinated by the hustle towards someone's craft that, surprisingly, that helped me try to get my footing academically. And watching you from afar, because I kept seeing you go from, man, Andover's really hard, to Yale, and you're like, Yale, like, y'all need to get on Andover's level. Like, this is easier. You had an easier time at Yale because you were so deeply prepared at Andover.
Right.
And
not to say that Yale was easy. I'm just saying that I remember coming. Yeah, it was easier for me coming in. And I want to preface that because of the level of training and preparation. I mean, the thing about Andover is that most of your classmates, a third of my classmates went to Ivy League schools or top 20 schools, right? So, I mean, 16 of us went to Yale, 20 plus went to Harvard. Like, that was just the type of preparation and obviously the intelligence level, but just the kind of preparation that these schools knew these kids will come in and do well. I remember coming in to Yale, and I did really well my first year, and I remember so many of my students having that epiphany that this was not where they came from. The academic level was not where they came from, and I remember so many students just being so angry or sad and feeling like they didn't belong there, and I really empathized with them, because I know exactly what that feeling was, having come from Andover. But I'm glad I got it early so that whenever I got there, I could either show them my tips and I could be an example that you can actually get better.
right.
You know what I mean? So it's difficult, but I'm glad that I'm glad I had the experience so that it made my journey at Yale manageable.
Yeah, see, I learned that lesson late.
But the thing is, I think that's okay, though. My thing about this was the thing that I needed for me to be the best version of me. I think other people need other types of experiences depending on who they are, their maturity level, what they're interested in. And I think that's why when it comes to, if you're ever parenting, for example, like, really feed into what the child's love and interest is. And then through that, show them hard work. Be the example, but give them the time to say, do you really want to do this? Well, if you're loving this, really go for it. Don't hold back. Okay. And if they love it, they'll start to create a time schedule. They'll start to figure out where their limits are, where their scale is. Right. And so I think it just depends on what that interest is. And you found that through the performing arts. That's why you're that motivated person who wakes up early and gets things done and stuff, because you had that experience that you needed to get there.
Yeah. It's funny because I didn't appreciate it in high school like I should have. I just saw students really being passionate about their craft. And I think what I realized is that I didn't share that same passion the way that they did. And so I was not motivated to be practicing like they were, because I was like, no, I really just enjoy it, but not enough to be going for a career. So I was like, at least I can rule this out. But now I need to figure out what makes me want to grind like my classmates do. Like that was fascinating to me. And watching you on your grind from afar, I had always seen you on your grind when we lived at home together, but then still getting to see you on your grind and figuring things out. And you truly thought that that was your path. And so you grinded as such. I've not been that type of person. I'm the type of person is I'm going to grind if I like it. And if I don't, then I'm not going to grind. And like that was the mentality that I had. So I was more seeking that, well, what is it that I'm called to do? I didn't feel like I had sat in that space yet. So
Right.
I took what I had seen in high school and what I had seen you doing at Andover, and I carried it into college, but it didn't really click until I started feeling like I found subjects that I really truly loved. And so when
Right.
it got to like organic chemistry, I was like, this is fantastic. Like that drive is it just, I felt overwhelmed by how much I really loved organic chemistry, to the fact that it put me into advanced organic chemistry as an elective. And people are like, Candace, no one takes advanced organic chemistry. Like, that's not a thing.
I definitely did. I don't
And
know how you did. I was like, what?
and I loved it. And I
That's
loved it.
so
And I was
weird.
like, this is
That's the weirdest thing
me.
in the world.
And I couldn't figure out why. But then I understood why you grind like you do, and why my high school classmates at Walnut Hill School of the Arts, why they were grinding and ended up at Juilliard and Rice and New England Conservatory, and the top, literally the top performing music academies and conservatories, dance companies, and all over the world, right? And I was like, I get it, but now I need to know what space this takes me into, because
Sure,
this is just
yeah.
from the college perspective, right? And because I found that grind, I started like remembering things that you were saying to do, and you kept telling me, Dad kept telling me, but because I hadn't found that thing that drove me to want to do what you were advising me, like study ahead or work harder, or just like, or like re-strategize,
Right.
utilize your time, don't waste your time. It wasn't until I found those spaces that really sparked something in me that you didn't need to tell me anymore. Now it was like, now I want to, like, now I want to figure it out, now I want to do this. And then that somehow helped tie it into the areas that are more challenging, but because I had a spark somewhere, I was willing to grind more in the areas that didn't give me as much spark. I think it was harder when I didn't feel like I had a spark anywhere,
right,
to try to grind. But then when I did have a spark somewhere, I was willing to put in more effort in the areas that didn't really kindle much in me. And it just grew me in all these other areas. So it was cool watching you do that in different arenas. From the academic side, you would find spaces or pockets that you didn't feel as strong in, and then you always found a way to re-strategize. And you were never, I never saw you as a person to be afraid to ask questions.
Very true.
I was always afraid to ask questions because I was afraid that, that imposter syndrome where you feel like someone's going to find out that I don't know anything.
That's my daily life.
I did. Right. And then, the thing, like, that's the thing. Like,
I sound like an imbecile all the time. But
even people who ask questions. Right.
You have to ask those questions and look and decide to look stupid.
Right. And that's the thing. I think that was what intimidated me about being your sister, or being in classes with people who were constantly doing better than me. I just thought they were always getting it. Whereas they were like, no, I'm just always asking a bunch of questions.
100%.
Until I get it. And that's
100%.
why I'm doing better. And so when I realized that they felt like imposters too, but they were willing to ask their questions despite feeling like imposters, I was more willing to start asking my questions. And that served me in pharmacy school too, because then it got to the point where it's like, no, I love this too much to allow it to defeat me.
Right, completely.
There has to be an avenue. Other people have figured it out. Other people are breaking barriers and figuring out this piece that everyone seems to struggle with. But if this is where I currently am, and you did it, and you did it, and you did it, then why would I not be able to do it?
Sure thing. Exactly.
So it was really cool. It was cool seeing you in front of me kind of lay that path on being really good at what you do, but it's because you, one, put in that time that most people don't see you putting in. They see the final product, and then they're like, wow, you're just a genius. You're like, I'm tired though. Like I'm exhausted. I've been doing the little things, working on the minute details behind the scenes, and I'm only coming up to the surface for you to see the products that I've been working under the surface on for a while.
100%.
And that it's okay. Like, I think I learned from you that it's okay that it takes time.
100%.
It's like for you, like what would be, I mean, that's things that I learned from you or that I saw, but what for you would be the lesson for other people to get from your story?
Well, what you just said, I think it's about having a long-term vision for what you're trying to do, because I think similarly to you, once you found your passion for academia, okay, that means you're probably going to start from the bottom in a way, because there are certain things maybe from high school you didn't so solidly or foundationally learn because you weren't taking the time, right? And now you have to learn that foundation. That's exactly how I feel about music. Once, as I believe, God enlightened me that I was supposed to be a musician, and that was at 20 years old. I mean, it was so clear to me that God was calling me out of a life of medicine and into a life of music. And now, I'm 32. But the person you're seeing now at 32 who arranges and produces and sings and plays cello and saxophone and plays piano and is part of this band, that is nowhere near to where I started.
Wow.
All I could do was kind of play cello. I was out of tune a lot. Whenever
Facts.
I beatbox, that's straight up facts. Oh my
Facts.
gosh, all the time. What? And even now, even when I'm on stage, there are times where I'm out of tune, and that's fine. We're human. But that I wasn't that person that really practiced. I just kind of did music because it was fun. Once I understood what was unique about my musicianship, at least for that time, with the cello and beatboxing, and God was calling me to it, it birthed a new spark in me to want to be better.
Yeah.
And so now I had to start to think about where I wanted to go. And honestly, I didn't know where I wanted to go. I just knew I wanted to get better in cello and beatboxing, up to the point where I could create this unique thing that randomly went viral. Okay, well, now I'm in the band. Was that exactly what I wanted to do for my career? No, I couldn't say that. But it was an amazing opportunity that I thought I would learn a lot from that became my career. I joined the band. Okay, now I have to be a better beatboxer. Okay, well, now I have to start listening to beatboxers that are better than me and just start taking a long-term approach. People don't know this about the sing-off. They'd say, oh my gosh, Kevin, you're this ridiculous musician on this beatboxer. They don't know that I would wake up 2 hours plus early just to practice fundamentals of beatboxing before we even started filming. And that was, sometimes it'd be 5:30, sometimes it'd be 6 a.m., but we would start doing our, recordings at 8. So I'm up at like 6, 5:30, just starting to learn fundamentals from people so I could be a better beatboxer, because I just didn't know how to do that because I never really done that intensity. And then we win the TV show, we get a record contract, we lose the contract, now we move out to LA. Now we have to figure out a grind so that we can put out a lot of material. Okay, well, that means I have to learn how to arrange a lot. So I was in the arranging rooms all the time, arranging with my band, learning how to songwrite. Songwriting so many songs to where I could write a song like That's Christmas to Me, and it'd be the name of a title track of our double platinum Christmas album. That was the one, album that really, I think, catapulted us, right?
Right.
Oh, now I have to learn how to perform. Okay, this is that. Okay, well, now it's 2015. I probably should learn how to sing, because I'm realizing that when I'm now doing cello beatboxing music and people are liking the album that I put out called the Renegade album, they're saying, that's really cool. Can you sing? I was like, what? I haven't really sung before. And I thought singing was something that you had to learn when you were young. I thought you were just born with this gift. I now know it's a skill and a craft that you can practice. So I decided at 26 years old, just start learning how to sing. Okay, I'm going to go to singing lessons. Okay, I'm going to watch YouTube videos of people that can teach singing. Okay, well, what's my unique voice? Who do I listen to that I feel like their voice resonates with me? Okay, great. I have that information. Keep trying it. Keep practicing it. Keep practicing it. You're not the greatest singer, Kevin. That's fine. It's not being about the greatest singer. It's being about the best singer that you can be to communicate what you have to communicate. Okay, now I'm learning about how to make my artistry happen with all the different tools that I have. That's gotten me to a point now. Oh, now I have to learn how to produce. Okay, now I'm learning how to produce. So it's a long-term vision of all these things that I've been learning to be able to communicate my craft, whether it's in the band or for my solo stuff that you see me do on YouTube or on my socials. So just taking that long-term view of where you want to be, there's a lot that you can do. People underestimate how much they can do in a year, but they overestimate they overestimate what they can do in a year, but they underestimate what they can do in 10 years. They truly underestimate that in a 10-year span, you will be so much better as a musician, as an artist, as a creative, as an entrepreneur, as a human, if you decide to be decisively diligent on whatever you're going after. So anyway, all of that to say, take a long-term view for what you want and go after that, and just know that it's a daily process.
So out of everything you just said, the word that came to mind was patience.
Yeah, 100%.
You have more patience than I do. You've always had more patience than I have had. I want things right now.
Of course, who doesn't? Oh my gosh.
But you exercise your patience better than I do naturally. And something that's very commendable about you is that you are not afraid to start at the bottom. You are willing to start at the bottom because you know that the bottom is not where you will be staying. You're like, I will start here. I have to. You can't just start in the middle. This is not a thing. You start at the bottom and you have a goal and you go, okay, this is a plan to get to this goal, but I have to realize that I have to start beneath my goal.
100%.
And so I think something that we can all learn is having patience with developing our craft or our skill and enjoying that process, because it's those little breakthroughs that are just the absolute coolest things. And those little breakthroughs, when you collect all those breakthroughs together, it's like collective sparks that cause this wildfire in you by the time you reach your goal. Like, and sometimes you have that wildfire long before you reach your goal, but you're just like, this is it. Like, this one moment, I'm so excited that I figured this out. And now that's an extra skill that I have. That's an extra understanding that I have. And I'm better now than I was even 5 minutes ago when I didn't understand this or I wasn't getting it. And that fuels you, and you'll start I feel like when you have those little breakthrough moments, you start to see an exponential growth. Because now you're not just figuring out these pieces, but now you're figuring out how to figure things out faster.
Yeah.
And then it just whoosh, and you're just like, man, now I just want to like learn anything and grow in everything, and it's really cool, you know. And it's not something that is only for artists to go through.
No, oh my gosh, no.
If you're in academia and you're listening to this and you're going, I don't play an instrument, I don't make sounds with my face. Well, you don't have to do all that to have these breakthroughs. Like, you can be, I mean, you saw me, Kevin, go through pharmacy school, and that was my Andover experience.
Yeah.
Right? You were 15 getting that rigorous academic experience. I saw the rigorous academic experience at 16 when I went to boarding school, but I wasn't stepping into that. Like, because I didn't feel called to step into this, right? So I just didn't appreciate it as much as I probably should have. But in pharmacy school, when it was my spark, to succeed in this program. And my goal was to be fantastic. And you saw me fail my first semester. And
Right.
I'm going like, no, 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 no. Like, I felt like quitting because of embarrassment, but that spark was still in there to figure it out.
Exactly.
And so I went from like the struggle bus of the whole pharmacy to being awarded the Leschaff Award at University of Kentucky College of Pharmacy, which is for the third year pharmacy student that is altruistic and shows the colorful aspect of being a professional in the field of pharmacy. And I was the last person that I thought was gonna get it. Like, I just didn't see myself. I didn't even see myself there yet. But you guys saw it. My professor saw it, and that spark has only grown in me to where now I just love academia. I love academia. Before, I couldn't stand it, but because I have this spark for learning and being innovative in my craft, which is pharmacy and public health, because I'm now a public health student, I'm now stretching myself because I realized, yes, like you do in the music industry, you have musicians that you've looked up to. You talk about Sting all the time and how you studied him and how he wasn't the greatest singer, but he's making number one hits, and he had his own way of getting himself there, and it had nothing to do with him being the best singer. It just had everything to do with him figuring out his way of getting to where he wanted to go. And so me, I had to take myself out of the, well, this classmate has been the top of our class since the first year, and they've gotten leadership positions in every organization, and every residency program is running for them. Like, they don't even have to apply. Like, people are calling them. They want them. They are now in their second year of residency. They finished their residency. They're doing, and I'm over here like, I'm not that person. And that's okay. That does not mean that my journey to where I'm being taken to is any less necessary or any less important.
Right.
I just have my own timetable, and I need patience with myself. I think being inspired by those who are already ahead of you, or even have figured things out faster than you, and having to also learn how to not be jealous of how they did that, or jealous of how fast they got it, and how you feel like you're going slower or you're going too slow. I don't think there's a too slow unless you're just not putting in effort. I think that's what makes it too slow, is you take the effort out, and it's like, well, now you're adding time, you're adding extra time that didn't need to be there.
Completely.
But when you really take that time, even if it's not as fast as someone else, it's on time. And when you get there, ooh, it's exciting. So I would say have patience with yourself. Have patience with yourself. Have patience with where you're going, where you desire to go, where you currently are, where you came from, and enjoy your process.
100%.
Journal your process. Write it down. Talk about your process with people that motivate you, that don't hold you back and make you feel bad about your process. Surround yourself with people. And like you were talking, you said you had other people that were also on their personal grind, and that's motivating to you. You had classmates who were, oh, I understood your struggle because I used to be in that space, or I'm struggling and I see you not struggling. Like, it's a motivator to be in arenas where people are doing better than you, or are encouraging you to push limits and break barriers, instead of being around people who are like, man, you're behind. Like, why are you still back there? I'm still back here because this is my pace, and I will get over here when I put in that time and I figure it out. But let me go through my process. My process isn't wrong. It's just at the pace that works for me, and I'll get there. Um, and so I love that. That's something that I guess you got a I guess you got a crash course of that going to Andover, and lo and behold, 15-year-old Kevin would not have guessed that stepping onto Andover's campus and feeling like a complete fish out of water would only prepare you to continually learn how to step into arenas that made you feel like a fish out of water, and be able to figure it out knowing that you would not always be a fish out of that water. You will eventually be in that water. So I think that's really cool that you've collected all of those moments and have seen how they tie together regardless of the arena that you've been in, and how it's still serving you. If you speak to anyone in the music industry or just in performing arts in general, unlike the sciences and chemistry and medicine and things like that, there's usually a window of opportunity, right? It's like, oh, you have to, by the time you hit 28, it's like the same thing in sports. Like there's a certain age or whatever, and they're like, after that, you might as well retire or you've missed your opportunity. And I remember we would have those conversations, and you're like, I'm late. Candace, I'm late. Everybody else they've been in conservatories. They've been doing music lessons since they were 5, but like hardcore, like intensely. We just did it because we liked it, and I didn't practice 8 hours a day in a practice room. I didn't. It's just not been me, and so I feel behind. But you took that I feel behind, but I can catch up eventually, and you ran with that. You ran with that. You didn't allow it to intimidate you too long. You had that moment of like, I'm intimidated, and it's not like you don't still have those moments of I'm still a little intimidated. Yeah, there's still fear. But where you've come from now, that you have a collection of moments where you've had those moments and you figured out how to push through them, and you saw yourself succeed anyway, that collection of experiences on a personal level help you even faster break through those moments of I'm afraid, or I don't feel as good as, or I'm not quite there yet, or why am I not having this breakthrough, or you're so much more positive about where you're going, how you're getting there. And I think that's just something we can all learn from, that you're going to collect stories. You're going to collect moments of I had that breakthrough, and you can look back when you're having another moment of I don't think I'm figuring this out, and you can go, yeah, but I did back there. So this is just in a different space, and if I could do it back there, I can do it over here. And then once I do it over here, I'll be able to do it over there. And watching yourself go through these seasons of breakthroughs, despite seeing other people go through their breakthroughs, and maybe feeling scared, but you'll grow your skin, and you'll grow your confidence, and eventually you'll be motivating people in ways that you never imagined yourself motivating people, and encouraging them when they feel the same way you used to feel. And then you'll be able to empathize and pay that empathy forward and encourage them, and maybe help them speed up their process in a way that took you a longer time, but because now you have the tools, you can help them jump hurdles that you can help them figure out those breakthroughs sooner because of the tools that you took the time to learn. And I can pay it with the people coming up behind you trying to run that race as well. So it's just been so cool being your sister and watching all the phases of you. And I also admittedly tend to forget that you struggle, because you're so good at your craft, and you've again, you've been better at things than I have, and I've always looked up to that and just like how are you so good at that? And I realized because of how you, especially because of how you speak to me, even though when I feel intimidated by you, you throw back at me, but it's your story, but it's your journey. So it's okay. It's okay to be where you are. Because I hear that back from you, I then get to say, even if something came easier to you than it did to me, it doesn't mean it won't come to me. That is the lesson that I feel like you just shared with us, that it doesn't, we don't all have to do it all in the same pace at the same time in the same way, but we can trust and believe that we will get there, whatever there is, whatever there looks like, and in that alone we're successful. So awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that vulnerable space with us, and just, letting us into that side of life that I don't think most people know about, because they just hear your music and they don't really know a lot of your backstory. But it's been an honor and a pleasure to watch you go through those stages of life and seeing how it's taken you places, and how we continue to motivate each other in our weaknesses and strengths, and edify each other, iron sharpening iron. And it's just, it's so cool to be on this side of Kevin Alushila from Pentatonics. Like it's a deeper personal, flesh filled experience, that makes you a lot more human than people have the opportunity to see. And I wish people could see the other ins and outs of who you truly are, the way I've been able to my whole life. So
thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So thank you again for talking with us. I will share your social media for people to follow you. You're just at K Olushila on most of your social media. So I'll definitely post that for you guys on my website, www.firstbasso.com. And I just want to thank all of you guys for listening to today's episode. If there are any topics that you want me to cover in the future, any situations that you have questions about that you would like talked about, you can shoot me a DM. You can post it on Twitter. You can tag me on Facebook at First Basso. And let me know if you relate to Kevin's story, or if you feel like you're still not able to relate to his story, but it's maybe helped you a little bit with how you're planning on approaching where you are. Share those stories with me. I want to hear them. I want to learn from you guys personally, and I want all of us to learn from each other, because that's the whole point of this podcast, is that we're learning from each other, sharing our experiences, and helping each other become the best versions of ourselves. So thank you guys so much. You guys take care. Stay safe, please. Kevin, we'll talk, we'll call, we'll FaceTime, all those things. And of course, with all that being said, Kevin, take care. I love you so much. Say hi to Lee for me. Hug her and kiss her for me. And everyone else, please continue social distancing and washing your hands and wearing your mask. But please stay connected with each other, okay? Love you guys. Take care. And we'll talk soon. Bye, guys. Bye, Kev.
Bye.